Mr. Jayson Gaddis, what's up, my friend? It's good to have you back on Men This Way. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Bryan. Great to see you, man.
You know, the episode that you and I did, man, it's been a few years now, I think. I was early in my podcasting journey. The emotionally unavailable man.
Yeah, I
That
remember
has
that.
been one of my most listened to episodes.
Oh, nice.
I guess there's a thing about emotionally unavailable men going on out there.
Yeah, and since we were two formerly emotionally unavailable men, it kind of works.
100%, man. Look, my lady Sylvie is, we daily have still sort of that yearning, the tension between us, where there's this yearning for more emotionality from me, and look, within me a yearning. I'd love to offer more emotionality, and we have a good sense of humor about it, Sylvie and I. But it's there, it exists. It's a
Yeah,
dance we continue to dance with. Would you say that's the same with in your relationship?
yeah. There's something similar where I can just get I just like have my game face on
Mm.
a lot, and it's like, wait, what? Where's honey? Where are you? You know,
Yeah.
and then stress is a new sort of emerged thing that I wear, mostly business kind of stress. Because I'm new at business and not great at it,
Mm.
and so I can wear that, and that's usually a repellent
In your to
in my
anybody
intimate,
or to your
no,
intimate
to my
relationship
intimate
especially?
relationship.
Yeah.
Well, probably to anybody, but
Yeah, yeah,
certainly
yeah.
to my partner.
I totally get that, man. Look, I built my business, my coaching business on my writing. Really, 8 years ago or so, really planted the seeds for that. I love writing.
Yeah,
I mean, the content, the creation, that
yeah,
the artistry of this work, and yet, running a business like this, man, it takes a lot of other, it's a whole other muscle
yeah,
that is very stressful. It's
yeah.
it's not where my joy generally comes from.
No, I'm usually in my left brain and it very in my head, and it's I think I love solving problems, so that part of it's kind of fun. But
Yeah,
when I'm just in the weeds like all the time, it's I'm like,
yeah,
this isn't my favorite spot.
yeah. And I know you and I think this is a common ground you and I stand on is we both want to do good service in the world, want to be
Hmm.
creating, teaching, guiding, leading the way, helping people navigate challenges more than just running a damn business.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we want to get our message out.
Want to get our message out, man.
Yeah.
So I feel you on that, and I'm actually really excited to talk to you today about the new book that you have out. And I think I mean, we're recording this on October 1st, but by the time this comes out, your book will be people can actually already order it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, getting to zero, how to work through conflict in your high stakes relationships. How long did it take you to write this?
Hmm. Well, I'd say once I got going, it was probably a 6 month process. But before the 6 month was this really crunchy, difficult, probably year long process of figuring out what I was writing about and getting the proposal dialed. And that was a whole nother journey. Felt like two books.
Writing a book is a marathon,
Yeah.
no doubt about it. It ain't a sprint.
Yep.
That's an Instagram post.
Yeah.
But writing a book is like an Iron Man marathon. It's
It's a
like,
little more Iron Manish.
yeah.
Yeah.
So congratulations,
Thanks, man.
and I'm really excited to talk with you about it because it's about conflict.
Yeah.
And quick check in: is this book geared towards men, or is it for men and women, just anybody who's interested in navigating conflict in relationship?
Yeah. It's anyone who wants to be in a good place in their most important relationships.
So, um, before we dive into that, I'm curious because I was in my men's group that I'm running right now. Just yesterday, in our one of our bi-monthly sessions, we were exploring our father stuff.
Yeah.
One of the questions that came up is that we ask is, what did your father teach you about conflict, and how did your father do conflict with you?
Ooh,
And I
that's a
would
good one.
love to hear
Yeah.
what you
Love that.
inherited, if you will, the modeling
Completely.
of your father in particular as a man around conflict.
Yeah, he did a pretty good job of hiding conflict with my mom, and I'm not saying that's a good thing, but he thought it was a good thing, so he did his best to argue with her kind of behind closed doors. So I grew up in a family where it felt like, oh, my parents never fight.
Hmm.
Um, and in terms of, so that was kind of the modeling. And I would see him be stressed from work and raise his voice at me, my siblings, my mom once in a blue moon. Um, yeah, in fact, actually, I have a memory of him standing up for my mom when I think I called my mom a bitch when I was a teenager, and my dad just fucking
Mm.
let me have it. He didn't hit me or anything, but he reamed me pretty good, and it was cool because he had my mom's back. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty powerful teaching. Um, but he was an intimidating guy, and I was mostly scared of him. He was physical a couple times, but mostly he would use his mean sort of look, tone of voice, and pointing the finger at me, uh, just to put me in my place. But there was never a repair or an apology or a ownership of anything. That's just not how my parents did it.
What I'm hearing in that is that conflict was modeled by your father, at least towards you, as a domination game.
You could say that. Domination, certainly intimidation. Um,
Intimidation.
yeah, like I think I know what you're saying. And he's definitely dominating, but I don't know if he was just kind of like saying, yeah, maybe it is domination. It's like, I'm in charge. Like,
Hmm.
don't mess with me.
Yeah. I mean, I had two fathers, dad and stepdad, and the models that I got from them was on the one hand, one was a conflict. We're just going to rationalize our way around everything. Like nailing Jello to a wall, as they say.
Wow.
Where
Yeah.
conflict doesn't even exist because we're just going to talk our way around everything. And I'm
Was he an
and
attorney or something?
should have been, would have been a
Uh-huh.
skill well applied. Um, but very intellectual, very heady.
Hmm.
This is my father, and so remains to this day the perpetual teacher. And there's just no, yeah. Then on the other hand, my stepfather, whom I love, I have a great relationship with. I have a better relationship with him than I do with my own dad. And my stepfather's way of doing conflict was, in a way, similar to what I hear from your father. Was uh, disagreement isn't, at least. Well, I'll own just what my stepfather, disagreement was not welcome.
Hmm.
In fact, disagreement was a sign of disrespect,
Right.
and
For sure.
disrespect was going to be met with overwhelming emotional force, never
Hmm.
physical violence, but
Yeah.
emotional. I mean, I was terrorized. Like the emotional, sort of tyrant emotional energy was so alive, and that I just knew there's really no place for me to have any dissent here.
Yeah.
So I was just terrified. I
It's
stayed away from
intense.
of conflict from
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, for sure.
Even to this day, I do my best to avoid. I have to tiptoe around
That
any
path. Yeah.
disagreements we might have.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that was so there you go, between the complete sort of checked out rationalizing version, like there's just no emotion present whatsoever, to the on the other extreme, the explosive, I will destroy you with my intensity if you
Hmm.
disagree.
Yeah.
Those are my models.
Matt, like a 5-year-old, I'm like, oof, that sounds harsh.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
pretty intense. Now here I am, in my 20s and 30s. I'm 47 now. I've been doing my own work around this for a long, long, long time. Those patterns are still present in me.
Uh huh.
But, I tried to do relationship with those two models in mind. How do you think it went for me, Jason?
Well, you're going to respond. It seems like people go two ways. They become their dad, right, or one of the dads,
Hmm.
or they have such an aversion to the dad they do the opposite.
Totally, man. And I basically had both those models. I had the opposite. I had the bipolar experience in both dads.
Yeah, that's
So
wild.
yeah, dude, I would just slam back and forth between, I just, no emotion, no emotion, rationalize around, right? And then when I always chose women that would never let me get away with it. They would, they were going to pin this goddamn jello to the tree. They were going to drive as many nails as they
Uh-huh.
could into the jello that was me
Yeah,
until this jello was stuck on the tree. And when I
right.
was so done with getting so many nails driven into me, then I would explode.
Ah,
Then I would become my
yeah.
stepfather.
Yeah, an explosion is something people do, right? Especially if they don't have other options or tools or haven't preemptively handled things along the way.
So let's dive into your book and your experience. First off, getting to zero. What are we talking about? What does that mean?
Yeah, it means we're going to get back to a good place. And so anything above a zero on a 0 to 10 scale is I'm triggered or activated, 1 through 10. And zero is, nervous systems have let down, scared animals chilled out, and we're all relaxed and good.
Sounds pretty good to me. It's the place just. I think a lot of guys would it offer that. Yeah, that's. I just want to live there always.
Totally, man.
Why do we even need to get above zero to begin with?
Yeah. Well, we're animals, we're social mammals, and we have two things that we're up against. One is our biology, and one is our history. And biology is, we don't want to be left out of the herd. We don't want to be kicked out, rejected, abandoned, and we don't do well alone as mammals. So it will do anything we can to maintain connection or closeness to the herd or another person,
Mm.
including betray ourselves. So there's the biology. That's what's at stake. If it doesn't go well, I could lose the relationship and I could be on my own. So none of us like that. And then there's our history, which is what we were just talking about, all the baggage and carnage from our upbringing or the downloads we got, however good or bad it was. We tend to play that out in our current reality with our current high stakes relationships. And that makes it very difficult. And we want to avoid that. And we don't want to feel this way. And it feels bad. And most of us want to get back to zero without any effort. I'm going to push a button.
Or I find, yes, totally. Want to push a button, and usually the button that sort of my training taught me to look for is okay. There's got to be a button in my partner's brain that if I can just press it. Now our audience is this podcast is largely for men, but we have a lot of women listening as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to kind of speak to the common man's experience. Obviously, not every man experiences things the same way, but I think a lot of men that I work with and that I'm in friendships with, and just been my experience. I'm my like my wife Sylvie. We long ago noted that I tend to not get upset until she's upset,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
usually my upset is coming because I don't want her to be upset.
Right.
So like here her upset rises. So I'm good. So my story tells me.
Right.
I'm sure there's all kinds of shit going on underneath the surface that I'm not present to.
Yeah.
But like I think for a lot of guys, so long as nobody's bleeding, the house ain't on fire, we don't have to call the cops, no one's coming at us with a knife, we're
Yep.
good.
Right.
Pay the bills, you're not starving, like I'm not cheating on you, like nothing big and major's happening.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem? Well,
Yeah.
there's an upset in my wife, and now I'm upset because I don't think she should be upset.
Yeah.
Help me
That's really
figure.
common, man.
Let's unpack that, man.
Okay. Well, one possibility is you're even though you are not that impacted as sort of your story initially, you're relational. You're a relational man, and so you care a lot about your partner. And when she goes down, you notice,
Mm,
and that's upsetting to you.
mm,
And I think there's a real, because you value relationships and you value her and how her well-being, and you care about her. That's a good sign. That's a sign of health when she's hurting and you notice and you're like, uh-oh, now there's an alarm bell going off that like, oh, act, do something, like help,
So
listen.
it's a sign I'm not a sociopath.
Absolutely. You're
Got it.
you're a relational being. Yeah,
Yeah.
because there are men that we know of that are not relational, and those are the guys that are causing harm in the world, probably.
Mm.
Yeah, so I think that's a good sign. And would it? A question back for you is: would it also be true that she sometimes, you don't know that there's anything going on with you. She actually knows before you that there's something going on with you.
Absolutely, man. Without a doubt. 100%.
Yeah. And that's the helpfulness and value of a partner, and two particularly maybe sensitive, you could call it sensitive-ish people that care again about each other in relationships. It's like, oh, she's noticing that something's off with you before you do, and then she might reach out, right?
I think a big part of the resistance comes from me not wanting to face what's going on with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Because
want
it
to
might
deal
be
with it.
uncomfortable, right?
Uncomfortable, inconvenient.
Yeah.
That
Not a
doesn't
good
need
time.
not a good time. Exactly. Yeah, there was a time my dad called. Sylvie and I were driving to the grocery store, and my dad called and had it on speakerphone. And this was a few years back, and I'm pretty accustomed to my conversations with dad being disappointing, and not connecting, just not very, just not feeling very good. But we got it. We hung up the phone after maybe 2 minutes, and Sylvie could see that I was affected. She could just feel that my heartbreak. It's like a little
Mm-hmm.
micro heartbreak, and she says, Bryan, it's okay. If you want to cry, you can pull the car over. If you want to just cry, it's okay. And my response is, babe, I'm driving. We got places to go.
Yeah. We got to
Try
get
to get
somewhere.
us somewhere.
Yeah.
Where are we going, Jayson? We're going to the damn grocery store. You know?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of moments like that,
Mm-hmm.
where indeed my partner, Sylvie, especially, she's very emotionally attuned. And so I think, to your point, absolutely, man. I think she's very, very sensitive to what I'm going through. I think it's a big reason I chose her to help me see
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. And again, I think this is the power of a good partnership, is that we can look out for each other in that way. I have a metaphor that I use in the book about two boats being tied together. You and Sylvie, chose to tie your boats together out in this vast ocean called life. And we want to be on a boat with someone who notices when we're not doing well, because they're like, shit, this could impact me and our boat. Like, this might not be good if a storm's coming or sharks are coming or there's all kinds of stuff going on or we get a hole in the boat. We want to notice the other person and that they're not doing well, so that we can help get them back to a good place, and so that we as a boat team can be at zero.
I like that. You also talk about in your book the five most common types of fights.
Yeah.
Let's unpack that. I think that'll be really interesting to our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got surface fights, projection fights, resentment fights, value different fights, and security fights.
Okay, so let's unpack them. What's a surface fight?
Surface fight is like, you left your keys again on the counter. What the hell's wrong with you? Or, you didn't wipe the toilet seat again, or you dishes in the sink, or you're not on time. And we start arguing about the thing we think the fight is about. And if there's heat behind it and your activation lasts more than a couple of minutes about that surfacey thing, that means there's a tributary down into one of the other four.
Oh, interesting. So we're fighting about the keys, or socks left on the floor,
Yeah.
or the way that my partner puts the dishes in the dishwasher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something. And that's, I mean, it's about that, but it's also never about that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Certainly not if it endures for
Yeah.
more
If it
than.
endures and you've had this fight before and you again have some heat or charge behind it, some activation, it just means there's a resentment there. Probably it's possible there's a bigger value difference going on, or it's possible it's tapping into this security issue where, God, I feel like 1 foot in, 1 foot out again. Like, let's say a common one is, you don't text me back. We're in a relationship and you don't text me back. Because whatever, I read into silence, right? And this is what we do as people, is we read into between the lines. Like, we make up all kinds of shit, and it's usually about us. They hate me, they're leaving me, they're dumping me. Oh my God, this is going bad. That turns into a security fight, because I'm like over here going, yep, see, they want to leave. They don't actually want to be in this relationship. And if it happens enough times, I stack these things up and I call it evidence to build my case, my story, that this is what's happening, when in reality that might not be what's happening.
Well, I mean, that makes a lot of sense because I can see how, tiny little fights, a text message goes unanswered for a couple hours for whatever reason. And one partner, I think it's, early in my relationship with Sylvie, I think she's pretty sure she's okay with me sharing this because she's talked about this publicly. We've talked about this publicly. She was the runner.
Yeah.
We'd get into an uncomfortable moment and I can't do this. I can't do
Uh-huh.
this. I can't do this anymore. And as soon as she said those words, well, I'm done.
Yeah.
If you
I mean,
if you can't do this anymore, I'm not trying.
that's threatening. Yeah. Those words are threatening.
And I think, we took that off the table early in our relationship when we realized that's not helpful.
Good move.
I think I know couples that years into their relationship, a something comes up and then, see, I can't trust you. I knew
Right.
I couldn't trust you.
Yeah.
You always do this. I can't trust you. I don't know how, I can't keep doing this. And it's a refrain that gets repeated over and over and over.
And that starts to erode. Talk about eroding trust. That statement right there is what erodes the trust.
So let's talk about now projection.
Yeah. So projections like this stuff, without going too deep into the weeds about projection, it's just think of, for the listener, it's like you married someone that some version of them starts to feel like your family, your parents, your mom or dad. The tone of voice, the way they look at you, how they treat you, their behavior, their body language starts to resemble something familiar from your past. And so that activates you because you're projecting that past figure onto your current partner. And then we can fight about that and get into like all kinds of interesting quarrels and arguments about what's actually going on. So to have a little bit of psychological education here, I think can go a long way, because then I can be like, oh, honey, you know what? You did that thing that on your face that looks just like the face my mom used to give me. And that's what's activating for me. You're not the problem.
Yeah.
The memory is the problem. And I'm putting that on you. And that's what I got to work with over here. That is enormously relieving to the partner who's being projected upon.
100%. And also, I've found that that's been helpful with Sylvie and I, where, we regularly, in moments of just tiny micro stress, we turn each other into our parents, into our,
Yeah.
I turn her into, ironically, I turn her into my dad, and she turns me into her dad regularly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we can having been able to identify that more, oh man, it's been so helpful.
It's huge. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So projection fights, I think, again, it's just bring awareness. And then when you know it's a projection fight, you're like, okay, this is what we're dealing with here. Whew. It's just not as big of a deal.
100%. And it's not even about you.
Right. It's not even about you.
Which immediately puts her, like in our example, it could put her nervous system, okay, so she doesn't have to fight me anymore because I'm not fighting her. I've just said, hey, I'm not fighting you. I'm actually fighting an old memory that's just coming up
Exactly.
in this moment.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And I've learned too, same, you said it, like there are facial expressions that I don't even know I'm doing it because I'm not doing it. The thing is, I'm not doing it. I have no facial
You're
expression.
Just being you.
I'm just hanging out. I'm just listening, actually. And she's projecting this old experience onto me, kind of filling, because I, like you said earlier, Jayson, I also tend to sort of just have game face on.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm not feeling particularly emotional. I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she'll read so much onto that sometimes because, it's scary for her if she doesn't really clearly know what's happening.
Yeah. And this is a really important point, I think, for the listener, is that how sensitive we are to face, and tone of voice in particular, those two things, and body language in general, but are huge. Sometimes we don't even know we're being triggered by that's the thing that's getting us, And so if you can slow it down, sometimes you might find out that it's actually a facial expression that's the most upsetting thing going on.
And I like that you said also tone of voice. I mean, gosh, Jayson, we could do a whole podcast episode just on this right here.
Completely.
Because I'm even mindful of, like, Sylvie, she's from Armenian Arab culture. I'm white American.
Yeah.
Facial expressions can be different in those cultures, and She doesn't recognize my facial expressions as much as she would an Armenian man.
Yeah.
That can cause confusion
Yeah.
between us. But tone of
Yeah.
voice, same. I've had multiple experiences with women over the years where I just was using my regular voice and they felt like I was yelling at them or I was
Right.
raising my voice or I was being cold and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just talking to you here. I don't know what do you mean? But I've
Yep.
learned I've learned oh, when I answer the phone with Sylvia at the beginning of our relationship, I just business voice. Yep, how you doing? Everything okay? Cool? You good? You have a good day? Blah blah blah. Yeah, blah 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 blah. She hated
She's
it.
like, no.
No.
Yeah.
Now it's hey babe. Hi.
Yeah. Right. Intonation. You got to like vary the intonation. Totally. It's
Which
less
is
threatening.
it's annoying to my own nervous system. I don't want to do that, Jayson, but I know it makes a difference for her.
Yeah.
So we got surface fights, security, projection. You said also value
Resentments and
differences.
value difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Value differences is just, to be the obvious right now is vaccines and no vaccines, right? Masks,
Right.
no masks. That's a very big value difference in belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't have it values that I don't talk about values like integrity and honesty. I'm talking about values like family, vaccines, no vaccines, Democrat, Republican, you know, uh,
Privacy,
privacy, where to put my
openness,
kids at
transparency.
school. You want public school, I want private school. These can be massive deal breakers for
Yeah.
people that lo and behold find out after a couple of years that they're quite split in their values. And different values isn't the problem. It's if there's not enough glue around a couple shared values, then it's going to be tough to work through conflict successfully over time because there's just not the glue's not there. We're just too different. We don't have anything in common. We don't do anything together that we like.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, then why are you together?
So surface fights, projections, even security. Although I could see, security, if someone's really not into the relationship, security could be a deal breaker. But
Oh yeah,
but value differences is one of these five where there's a legit potential reason to not be together if we can't
yeah,
resolve
and
or
that could
work
be
through it.
okay. And that it's like, oh, you believe this, and this is really what you want to do, and the direction you want to go in life with your boat.
Yeah.
I actually want to go in this direction with my boat. It's probably best we just split up and high five each other, and it's no one's wrong here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's it's really important to call that out because I think, you and I both work in the relationship coaching and therapy space and I look, man, I love it when couples find their way to navigating, keeping their boats together and finding their way through storms. I love that.
Yeah,
And I am not a together at all costs proponent.
I'm with you. I'm not either. Yeah, sometimes the best thing we can do is part ways.
Yeah. So, all right, resentments.
Yeah, resentments is my definition is when I expect you to live like me, or you expect me to live like you, we're going to resent each other. And that's to me the definition of resentment. And when I don't hold my boundaries, is another possibility where I'm going to resent you because you keep asking and I keep saying yes. Well, I'm not respecting my no and honoring that, so I'm going to probably have a resentment here. And resentments are great because they feel bad, and they feel bad enough that they wake us up to see our pattern. And most of the time, initially though, if we haven't worked on ourselves that much, we'll blame the other person. You never, you always, blah blah blah. Do life this way, and I hate that. It's like, well, the thing I have control over is not them and their behavior and what they choose with their life. The thing I have control over is my expectation that they do it my way. And when you shift that, you're going to start resenting people a whole lot less. And it's going to feel a lot better to the other person because they won't feel judged and criticized.
Yeah, 100%. So we've got, I'm going to summarize these again: surface fights, projections, value differences, resentments, and security.
Nice.
5 most common types of fights.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start breaking down conflict and getting to zero. And I realized,
Yeah,
we could do a whole, like year-long course on this, Jason. And I know that
absolutely.
you offer this kind of work through your work and through
Yeah.
the coaches who carry on your work as well. And um, but if we were gonna break conflict resolution in intimacy, particularly down to the basic essentials, like to keep things kind of
Hmm.
simple for our listeners,
Yeah.
what would you offer?
Yep. Yeah. It's an important question. So a couple things. You got to, number one, have the right view, which is conflict isn't a problem. Conflict's an opportunity. It's a doorway for us to get deeper, stronger, better together. Uh, to me, that's always true. And yeah, it can also mean that the relationship ends and me getting stronger is ending the relationship, more empowered.
Mhm.
But conflict is this awesome, powerful, uncomfortable as hell process where we can become more of who we are. So I think just the view itself is, in terms of the framework, is important. And I spent a lot of time on that in the book, making sure people are on board. Then we can talk tools and tactics, which is more like, all right, if I want to resolve something fast, I can do two things really quickly that make all the difference. Number one is I can listen to you until you feel understood, and I can volunteer to go first. Hey, Bryan, you know what? We've been in the snag for a while. Tell you what, I'm going to listen because I want you to feel understood, because I'm over here believing that if you feel understood, you'll be more interested in trying to understand me.
Mhm.
So rather than getting my piece out first, I'm going to listen first. So this is kind of contrary to what most human beings and their patterns do, where it's like talk first. No, listen first. Just that alone, I think, is a game changer. And I have a whole process on how to, you can more effectively listen, which I'm sure you teach a version of that to your people. And then if we're going to talk, the first couple of things we can do is take responsibility for our part and understand the impact on the other person. And that's empathy. So I can say, Bryan, my part is I raised my voice. And I imagine the impact on you was that you felt scared and hurt. And it makes sense. And then I validate it makes sense that you retreated and pulled away from me because I did
Mhm.
that. I mean, that's very settling to the other nervous system. It's like, ooh, this person's fucking owning their shit fast here. Wow.
And what I'm also in just you know this what often happens in that little place right there is because the way you spoke that was, okay, I'm going to own my part and I'm going to stay here for a minute. I'm
Yeah.
not going to own my part with the immediate expectation that you're right behind me to own yours.
Yeah. With my arms folded and my dirty look.
Exactly. Okay, I know I did this, but
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
where's your turn? Mm?
Yeah.
Right? That's so what I mean. You really got to stay there for a minute.
Yeah. You got it.
Let it
Yeah.
land.
Let it land, and really the imagining the impact on the other person is us flexing our empathy muscles, which
Mhm.
is a weak spot of mine, honestly, especially in my
Yeah.
partnership. And so for me to do that over and over is really helpful, because my wife wants empathy from me. She wants to understand impact, that I impact her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, right, okay. And sometimes I struggle with this one
Yeah.
because I don't know what it's like ultimately to be her, but I can imagine and I can
Yeah.
take a close guess, and that effort helps.
I think that's a key word right there, man. Impact. Because one of the stumbling blocks that I still, man, stumble over is needing to understand her why, like
Hmm.
to agree with her conclusion
Hmm.
that this is why I'm hurt, and therefore, like, until I understand the why, I'm not enrolled in empathy.
Right.
But when I
Good point.
can
Yeah.
step out of that, forget why for a minute, and just impact. I have fucking impact.
You have
I'm
impact.
I'm impacting her.
Yeah.
Like, even if I don't know why, it's a fact. I'm impacting her in the same
Yeah.
way that, she throws cold water on me, and I have had women throw water on me in the past, and not, in anger. So it fucking impacts me.
Yeah.
I'm cold. I'm
Completely, man.
wet.
Yeah. And usually it's impact that doesn't feel good.
It
Usually.
does not feel good. It is not not skillful action on their part.
Yeah.
which typically is preceded by not skillful action on my part.
Yeah. Yeah. Just keep backing it up.
So what would it look like? Like a couple that can regularly, because I hold that if two people are really having an authentic, honest relationship, it doesn't mean they're sharing everything with each other, but they're sharing when things come up that need to be shared, they're sharing them.
Yeah.
And they have their own opinions and they have their own views
Yeah.
and so I think couples are regularly, I imagine, you and your wife, you seem like two strong-willed, independent thinking people. I imagine disagreements,
Yeah.
potentials for conflict are arising
Of course.
regularly.
Yeah.
What does it look like for a couple that is successfully navigating that over time? Like what is a cycle? What does that look like?
Yeah. Nice. It looks like as soon as possible, they're committed to getting to zero. And we're all busy. So that as soon as possible might be 2 days. It might have to wait till the weekend. It might have to wait till this evening, or tomorrow morning. And that's all okay as long as it's okay with both people. But this is where agreements come in that, my wife and I have an agreement that nothing goes longer than 24 hours without getting repaired or the
Mm,
beginnings of the repair process. So that's really, really important. So what it starts to look like is two people are just committed to feeling good. Let's get back to a good place. And so I'm going to apply myself to try to make that happen. You're going to apply yourself to try to make that happen. And we're going to get there. And it might mean clearing the decks, canceling a meeting, um, moving it up the priority scale so that the other person feels like, hey, this is a priority. I feel considered and thank you. And yeah, but for us, sometimes it's like our kids want our attention. And if we're in a fight, it's like, not right now. Mom and dad aren't done talking. We need another 15 minutes. And we're like in it, and they're coming in, they're like rolling their eyes that mom and dad are in a fight again. And by the way, I'm a big fan of fighting in front of them because
mm,
I'm showing them
yeah.
through daily living how to get to zero, right? How to do this. And our kids know how to do this now because we're showing them.
Yeah.
Uh, anyway, it looks like that. Like, nope, this is a priority. We're going to get this done. And it does look like usually talking, taking turns. Someone listens first, someone validates, reflects. We sometimes step aside and look at the problem, objectively, like, what is this couple, almost like a third couple, like, yeah, what's that couple doing over there? What do you think they need help with?
Hmm.
And really looking at it. And I feel grateful that I have psychology tools and self-awareness, because I think it's much, much steeper for people that don't. I really do.
Agreed. Same. I've been doing, personal growth, transformational work, therapeutic work for fucking 20 years, man. And
Yeah.
it still at times can be really,
Oh, totally.
oof.
Painful, uncomfortable, all of it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I love Jason. Thank you, man, for saying that you don't try to hide this from your children.
Yeah,
I think that's so valuable that your kids get to witness even the messy parts.
totally. They see it. They see it all.
Do you have any conflicts or differences between you and your wife that are just kind of like ever present? That I'll give you an example. Like Sylvie and I, um, we have a dog. I tend to be far more liberal
Hmm.
in risk taking with the dog, letting the dog do things.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of parents could probably relate to this, especially a parent of a children or an animal.
yeah,
One parent has a far more tolerance for risk, and the other is far more risk averse.
yep. That's pretty common. Yeah.
Pretty common, and it's not a deal breaker. Obviously, I mean,
Yeah.
but it's ever present. And I
Hmm.
know there are other kinds of conflicts. Some partner may work too much for the other's tastes, or vice versa. I'm curious, how do you help couples, or how do you propose couples, or how do you and your wife navigate
Hmm.
these ever-present conflicts that exist in that's like just part of the water you swim in together.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a great question because I think what you're alluding to here that I'm getting is that some people aren't going to change here, right?
Yeah.
You're not necessarily going to get more conservative, and she's not going to get necessarily more liberal with the dog,
No,
right?
no, it's not.
So this is what's cool about this is when we realize, oh, this is kind of how you roll, we can learn, the other partner can learn to accept the other person how they do it. With there might be need to be a couple reasonable requests to make, a couple asterisks that are like, yeah, buts, or can you also do this? Can you, keep her on leash in certain places of town or by roads or big freeways or something that you're like, yeah, I can do that. I'm willing to do that, especially if it makes you more comfortable, right? We get to do those kind of things for each other. But by and large, we don't want to ask someone to be a different human being. I just think that's a setup for failure. And when couples get in real big snags, that's what they're asking. They're asking, you can't be this way. You can't be so liberal. You can't be so conservative. You can't parent the kids this way and let them be on screens all day. And I'm an anti-screen person. Like, that's not going to work. Those couples usually divorce. And then it's like, at my house, we do screens, and at your house, you don't. And it's your prerogative. That's fine. Mm-hmm. So these are complex issues, but if they're big like that, I don't know that they can be worked out unless you can start to accept that the other person's way is okay. It's actually not life-threatening. It's not the end of the world. Yeah. It's not going to kill anybody. It's uncomfortable for you to watch, but it's okay. Like, I think that can be a cool practice for couples to love each other,
Yeah, I'll also offer, thank you for that. I think that's, I think, I mean, you said it, these things can be complex, and I'm a fan of getting support to help unravel and some of these things, with a third party, someone who can really help you discern what's really going on here.
Yeah.
And is this a deal breaker, or are we just doing a lot of projecting, maybe?
Yeah.
or right, or is there is this surface fight that's kind of plumbing into some resentments, perhaps, that we can learn to let go of. One of the things I think, I met Sylvie when I was 41 years old, so I had a lot more life experience than if I had met her. My relationships in my 20s and 30s were just ridiculously disastrous.
Yeah.
Jayson.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Raising your hand. Yeah, you're with me. One of the things that I've appreciated, I think just being a man in my 40s, I've come to understand that some of the differences between Sylvie and I need her to be more risk concerned. Mm-hmm. Our dog would probably be dead by now if I didn't have her balancing out.
Exactly. Yeah. Well said. You guys are like a team that way, right? You balance each other out. Like, again, a yin and yang. You kind of need her conservatism, and she needs your liberalness.
Exactly.
And you guys make an awesome team. Exactly. This is where diversity in a relationship and differences are strengths.
Yeah.
If you learn how to work with them.
If you learn how to work with them, that's right. That's right. And what I find is I can allow myself to be, a little annoyed by her sort of risk aversion, but we've also decided, this is something we did. We decided that Sylvie is in charge of the dog's health.
Nice.
That's her domain. She's the leader in that domain. If she says the dog needs to go to the hospital, the dog goes.
Yeah.
I don't have to like it, but she's the boss.
Nice.
And because, and that's probably saved our dog's life in at least one occasion. Because I would have been like, it's fine. It's just a flesh wound.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's being consumed alive by flesh-eating bacteria that, 3 days later it's dead. So, Jayson, just one more question, and then we'll wrap up with 3 key takeaways.
Okay.
What are you most excited about for people to get from your book?
That there's a path forward. Yeah, that there's a way you can work through hard conversations and relationship challenges. There's lots of ways, but I'm trying to offer people a guidebook here for a path forward. And don't lose hope, and at least give it a massive try and apply yourself. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Yeah,
there's a path forward. We're not trapped. Hear that, men?
Yeah,
we're not trapped. We can be free again.
You got it. Totally.
Which doesn't mean free from conflict
or pain or discomfort.
Yes. Wonderful. Jayson, let's wrap up with three key takeaways. All right, we've had I think we've had a really beautiful and tight conversation here, but let's give our listeners three key takeaways that they can really walk away with from this, in addition to
Cool.
whatever they've. And again, it can be your summary of what you've said, but three key takeaways.
Yeah, and I'd be curious if you would tweak or modify any of these. Do you want me to say three that I'm thinking
Yeah,
of?
they're all yours, man. Three.
Okay. Number one, conflict's not a problem. It's your relationship to conflict that could be the problem, and your unwillingness to learn.
Hmm.
If you apply yourself and learn, you too can learn how to get to zero and get back to a good place with just about anybody. That's number one. Number two, there's different types of fights, and it's important to know which one you're in because I think it'll help you get to zero sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And then number three might be that we're sensitive creatures, social mammals, and we're sensitive to tone of voice, facial expressions, and we can be considerate of the other person and how we behave during and after conflict.
Yeah.
And we can own our part and understand the impact on the other person, and that might help us get there sooner.
Beautiful, man. I love it. I think this is so important. Obviously, I know you wrote your book for you could say high stakes relationships. I mean, we've been talking a lot through the filter of intimate relationships, but man, the world is full of high stakes right now.
Yeah.
Learning some conflict navigation skills to get us back to zero, wouldn't that just be good for the planet?
Amen. Totally.
Where can people find your book?
Yeah, probably the best place is gettingtozerobook.com. And there's links obviously in Amazon, and you can find it just about anywhere, hopefully. If you want to try your local indie shop because you want to support the local businesses, do that. Just request it at that store, and hopefully they'll carry some copies. And there's a lot of cool free resources if you that go along with the books, some free videos, some downloadable PDFs, some sample conversations. If you go to gettingtozerobook.com, that's probably the best place for the most resources.
Great. Gettingtozerobook.com. And the book is Getting to Zero: How to Work Through Conflict in Your High Stakes Relationships. Author Jayson Gaddis, Jayson with a Y, Jayson.
Just like Bryan with a Y.
I got you. I see you, man. I'm with you on that.
You're with me, bro.
Jayson with a Y, Bryan with a Y. Love it. Jayson, man, always a pleasure to have you on Men This Way, man. I so appreciate your wisdom and insight and your service to men and to couples and to the world. And keep doing it, man. I'm excited for people to read your book. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Bryan. Thanks a lot for what you're doing and for helping the brothers out there.
Thanks, man.